We're going to start with all the improvements here. Behemy is a little different. Let's just kind of go through. Probably should have just gone through the overall here. So we have increased mitigation values, which is helpful for Behemy. Has a counter chance. Let me get over here. And unfortunately, this is going to be kind of go through here and with the regenerating rage here. And the regenerating rage gives you morale boost here for the 200. It is a bigger increase here, and the more important thing about it is that I've got a very, very annoying Moobot who I totally forgot about. Sorry, everyone. But, anyways, the important part here is that his counter chance is much higher. But the bigger part here is each time he counters now, he fills the morale gauge. This is actually important. He might actually be a better tank than Maeve is because if the boss does enough actual attacks for the countering, Behemy will fill the morale gauge very, very much. Was there a limit on how many times that he has for max one turn for regenerating rage? So, okay, so the best he could do is fill the morale gauge 400, which actually does limit his morale gauge, which actually kind of sucks. It should have been a little bit higher there. They increases the counter chance to 100% instead of 50, which is good, but I'd rather have them increase the max instead. I mean, yes, HP MP 10% and restore MP 10% to all allies is pretty good, but and is kind of powerful. But I think the actual power is that morale gauge for Cal. And it's a little disappointing that it's only to 200. Increasing it though to 100% is very good. This hasn't been fully updated. And the King's Barrier. So let's maybe. So the King's Barrier is all elements 80% now for 4 turns to all allies. He can keep this up entirely as long as he doesn't get dispelled. Grants HP barrier and goes up to 15,000 max for 4 turns to all allies, with the defense and some attack and magic as well. To be honest, the defense, spirit, attack, and magic's kind of whatever for the increase. It is useful, but the HP barrier can be incredibly useful along with the elements. So from a tank standpoint, Behemy, I think, is a little bit behind Maeve, only because of the fact that Maeve kind of has just a little bit more of the ability to be flexible. But with the Behemy giving 80% elements to everybody, that's pretty big. And depending on exactly what's needed, that is absolutely huge. The big worry is, yeah, you'll still need at least 20% element resistance, etc., where Maeve can just switch to Magic Tank if needed. But at the very least now, we used to be bring in Elena to put everyone to 100% and then have to play along. If you do need a tank for cow units. And with that 80% element resistance, that's pretty strong overall. Very, very impressive. No complaints here. His Brave Shift is really hasn't been changed a great deal. So, basically we just have mounting range, which has the morale gauge now, and that's 100% as well. And that one just does LB gauge, which is still very, very important. Um, but the rest of it here is pretty much the same. So he doesn't have the King's Barrier, which I actually think is the biggest increase out of all of them. Mitigation's helpful. The barrier gain with the morale scaling barrier is going to be useful, but I think with really smart party design, you don't need it as much. But the ability to have 80% of all elements is absolutely huge. We'll say for Eldryn for last here. Let's go with Christine. I've got to find her here first. All right, so let's get Christine going. All right, so let's now focus on Christine real quick. Sorry, my mouse is just not behaving. Her EX2 now gives her 500 more static magic, upgrades her limit burst, which we'll talk about there in a little bit. And now we have a 20x modifier for some of her abilities, and another 50% magic and 100% chain modifier cap. This is really helpful for her. It still doesn't really put her into WoW usage in general from an EX2 standpoint. Exactly, Barb, because almost all of these are still absolute zero skills. And so let's just kind of go back up here real quick. For a lot of her chaining is AZ, which is absolute garbage. The one good thing here is she can help boost ice, but in all honesty, Celis does it better. But if you don't have Celis and you do have Christine, you can use this every 4 turns. It doesn't require a limit burst. If you're looking at her upgraded limit burst here, I'm going to be honest, this is nice. We've got 150 to 180x damage. That puts her at least closer to on par, but decreasing ice resistance 130 for 5 turns is a pretty lengthy boost, but still we're all in all, they tried with her going with her brave shifts. Still got absolute zero. The only way to really make her better is to go from absolute zero, give her bolting strike, which they didn't do. I mean, they tried. This here is a lot better with the upgrade limit burst, more LB damage and 700 magic, but still. All she really is good for is this skill right here, which gives her up to 540 max to all enemies. It's Extreme Nova, which can chain, but we don't have any other Extreme Novas right now. So this has potential for Cow, or even outside of Cow with the 210. But until we get Extreme Nova, and you could see the Extreme Nova availability here, which is limited. Hio, Elena. So at least she could chain with Elena, but that's about really it. We're not going to be using Mastermind Zahn for a lot of things. It is pretty disappointing from the lack overall. I mean, Elena's and Christine's can do some damage, but all in all, it is very disappointing from Christine. She does get that limit burst damage, but with our unique units at some point, I do expect to see more of the Extreme Nova limit burst units at some point again, but it will take a while. And yeah, that is very, very frustrating. All right, let's go Kryla here. So let's go with her new EX3 skill, Calamity Connection. They did okay with this skill. It's 5 turns. The first 2 is 88% for all 4, and then 85%. So 2 turns, then another 2 turns after that, 85. So it does quote quote degrade a little bit, but that's fine. 120% for the non-light and dark, and 135%. I really, really think that's actually a pretty good skill overall. There are some 89s and 90s out there, and unfortunately, those 1 and 2% does really increase. But if you're trying to decrease light and dark resistance here, and you have a team both of magic and attack users, Kryla is actually pretty good overall, especially if you're trying to do a 1 turn unit. In all fairness, actually, Kryla is going to be a really, really good Dark Visions unit for 1 turn. You could just cast Calamity Concoction. She will absolutely lower everything, and the increase LB gauge 20 to all allies. I mean, filling the morale gauge 650 is actually a pretty big buff. Plus, doing all of this stuff to an enemy fills the morale gauge a lot as well. So this is a pretty powerful morale gauge bomb. But personally, I don't really see a whole lot of use for her in Cow, because she needs a lot more of this overall. Let's go ahead and go to her Brave Shift. The Twilight Pact does very interesting things, but it's only to one ally, and I'm a little frustrated by it. It seems like it could be good, but the big problem is increased light and physical damage by 45%, and increase there, but to 1 caster. Honestly, Aerith does this better. It's just for light though, so theoretically you could cast this on like Sephiroth. You guys can help me out for other units that might want this as well. Excuse me. This is just a weird skill to only have 1 ally and to make them take a healthy amount of damage for it as well. I mean, yeah, 45% of light and dark physical damage is very, very strong. But maybe also Cardin wouldn't mind this as well for the dark. But he doesn't need the limit burst gauge increase, and 30 is not enough. If this was like a 90 or even a 60, I think that would be a lot better skill overall. It can be used as long as you've got enough LP crystals, but still, we can triple cast it if you've got enough, but I'm confused on that one. Honestly, it is the highest dark amp, but it's not a huge increase. And I know people are going to use it for that, but it's really slow, and you're only going to be able to use it on 1 or 2. Yes, it's going to be a dark vision strat, but this increase in the attack here, we're going to probably have to double cast it. You're just going to boost her up. So yeah, there will be some use. the can't be dispelled part, I actually think is the most important part for the dark vision strat. Um, but this limit burst gauge here is kind of a weird red herring, unless if you're doing like a Kresnik strategy and you need that last 30. Um, could help there. Um, let's just go with her. What was her other thing here? She has the support. Hey Lou.
This is bad comedy.
She has the ability to also reduce attack, defense, magic, spirit 70% for 5 turns to all enemies at the beginning of the battle now. She fills her own LB gauge to full at the start of the battle, which is 30. So it can only be used twice. You've just missed a couple of the early units review, nothing too big, which is also very good. So she has more uses than she did before. There will be some dark vision strategies, as Barb has stated, with her EX here, which she can cast twice before then she needs to refill her own thing. But once again, it is the best dark physical damage and magic damage for now. That will change relatively soon. But it's just weird. It will be useful, as I say, but from most of the areas, the only person that really needs this dark physical damage boost is Sephiroth. A lot of other units that would use dark can be imbued with any other elements as well, and light and earth is just a better way to do that. So if you're doing a Sephiroth strat, then yes, that would work, but it would require that only 2 people get the physical buff instead of multiple, and that still limits the overall damage use. So it just complicates a lot of things and might not actually be worth it. But that is what it is. All right, now we're going to go talk about Eldryn. Let's go get this going. So they did do a new EX3 skill, so Blizzard Fury. The good news here is his EX3 is actually useful, decreasing sword resistance 25%, and with the beast increase in magic and physical damage with 160% is very good, but also giving only the ice physical and magic damage to the caster. Yes, it is 50%, and if you're going to Zon it, that would be, very, very high physical ice and magic damage increase. But it sucks that this is not for everybody. And at least now we have the ability to increase beast. But the big difference here is they did not fix his biggest issue, which is look at all this AMOE, Brave Shift, AMOE. Did not fix his biggest problem, which he needs another chain family overall. Let's see here. The other thing that they did is that for ZX2, they really increased his static attack and magic. This actually is huge. And that would be correct. Barb. No, hold on. Let's check real quick. There's a lot of AMOE here, but for Cow, I think we're starting to get into newer units here. It is King Behemy, yes. And that's only from his Brave Shift, which is actually frustrating because for King Behemy, you're only really you want to stay in his normal form a bit more now. I feel, but yeah. So it's basically Behemy. You can do other changes as well, but stupid. I might have to buy a new stand or fix it. Um. So if we go, but let's go back down here real quick again. Uh, this flash freeze, and heavy snowfall is a huge increase in modifier now, 460x. So if you go back up here to flash freeze and the heavy snowfall, which increases this as a huge finisher, and the flash freeze as well. This was a huge disappointment initially. Now these actually do some pretty big finishing damage, and along with the 1,000 overall he has for the static, does help him greatly, but still he is going to lack some overall damage with except for his Magnus abilities. The Magnus abilities is basically what he has, but once again, the only way you're going to really be able to work with him in Cow is with Behemy, and honestly, in Dark Visions, he's just not there. In all honesty, this still is not enough, and it is very, very disappointing. All right, and let's go with our last unit, which is the one that I think almost everyone's been waiting for. Let's go talk about Tiana. So Tiana, so great thing about Tiana, she is true brave shift. Both forms are available at times without limitation, and she has 20% for her 5 main elements, which the tree, of course, loves. Now we're just going to kind of go through this. She has 5 different elements here. They are all the same. The only difference is the elements. So she can increase physical accuracy to all allies by 50%, which is helpful because sometimes with the 50% dodge is very annoying. So you don't have to always have true double hands. But she can do physical magic damage to both allies and herself. Allies get 30%, herself get 50%, and you can choose between fire, earth, wind, water, or lightning for the elements. The only thing that changes is fire gives you accuracy 50%. Earth mitigates damage taken 50%, and these are all to everybody. Wind allows you to evade. Water gives you an HP barrier, and lightning gives you LB gauge. It's interesting that you get different things for each element, but really you're just going to be doing this for increasing elemental damage. If you need to give everybody like physical evade for everybody. And this is actually by far the most useful one of the bonuses. Yeah, you can argue about the 50%. But giving 2 evade, it will just increase your wind, physical, and magic damage. And it doesn't matter if you don't ever need to use it. You can always still cast it and still be useful. So it's still there, and that's all good. Let's see here. She has a nutritious tonic that gives HP to all allies. More importantly, MP to all allies. She only gets 50 MP because it costs her 50 MP to cast. She can get rid of attack, defense, magic, spirit break, and gives resistance to those breaks as well. So this is actually a useful skill. She can quad and triple cast with these. And this is important. Yes, she does have quintuple cast as well, but not many units can use that. If she didn't have this triple or quad choices, she would have been a lot less useful in the end. So this is good. She can decrease throwing weapon resistance 30%. This spirit break isn't high enough at 85. She can fill morale gauge 300 with this skill, which is at least good, and gives her the quintuple brewing, which is a very useful skill there. This is kind of interesting, where it allows you to absorb 5 different elements for 1 turn, but only to 1 ally. So if you've got a cover tank, they will be basically invincible and actually heal as long as the enemy uses any of these. Very, very limited use, but has definitely ability to be useful in both Dark Visions and Cow. Her Revitalizing Brew has a regen ability for 5 turns for both HP and MP. Gives okay increase in attack in the stats at 280. And gives magic and spirit 300% to herself, which is okay as well. 280 usually isn't to scoff at, but for everything, you're at least looking for 350 or higher. So I'm okay with that. Interesting here is her other one-use Magnus, which is increases fire, lightning, water, wind, and earth resistance 150% for 5 turns to all allies. And for an infinite turn, you get 75% for those and fills morale gauge by 500. This one has the obvious uses for both Dark Visions and also for Cow, as you can imagine. The one thing, though, that I don't like, it's not undispellable. And so I kind of worry that if any bosses have that, then this is a very scary thing to use overall. Obviously, death is also bad in case that happened, because you lose that as well. This is a large morale gauge, but once again, for a Cow unit, I don't see Tiana as a huge morale gauge booster, and that's another potential issue that I see. She gets Warring Spirit and her magic 500 magic EX3. Those are always the normal EX2 and EX3s. In her normal form, she regenerates once her HP drops below 50%. So, really, if you're fighting some interesting bosses, she at least can regenerate. So maybe even like a Kryla attack on her or something. Very, very good for that. What I'm interested in is this magic evasion. I thought our cap was 50%, but she has a 75% magic evasion. So that is very, very interesting. She also hates plants and aquatics if you make her equip a throwing weapon for magic. She has increased magic 220%, which is huge. She is definitely a true double hand unit, so she has 400% there and 100% chain modifier cap. So she only needs a 100% to max out on her skills. And she can increase the potency of healing items, which there. Barb magic doesn't stack, so you can't make her 100% evade. They did not allow you to be fully physical and magic. We have a dungeon if people want to join in. But all in all, this is a very interesting kind of offsets here. The other thing, she doesn't get targeted very much. This is very unuseful. Auto casting of the efficiency every turn. Gives morale gauge 200. So she will always do the morale gauge for 200, but with the way that we try to build teams, I don't think that's enough. And on this side, she has the ability to revive all KO'd allies at 100% and 30% auto revive for one turn if she doesn't auto attack. I know a lot of people like, ooh, this one I don't see nearly as useful as like what Kresnik was. I'm glad that they thought of it and trying it, but I don't think that's what really is the greatest thing overall. I think it would have been much more interesting if like it was a heal, even if it was a weak heal. So oh, friends glitch is still glitched. Awesome. Her limit burst is interesting, where she can increase fire, lightning, water, wind, and earth magic damage and physical damage 30% for 5 turns. And restore HP MP 100% to all allies. That's actually a pretty good skill overall. I really like the HP MP 100%. With enemies that take away your MP, she's actually going to be really useful for that. You know, especially if they take around turn 1. She will autofill 60 if you have her at EX2. She will be able to give all of your MP back and kind of ignore that really annoying tactic and allow you to go and at least get ready for it everywhere. So that is actually a really useful, very niche, but very useful limit burst. So that one I'm okay with. Brave Shift is the exact opposite. She can actually do some attacks on her Brave Shift. So she has her triple quad here. And now for her unstable fill in the element. These are all the same. You decrease the element resistance by 130. And then you have the magic damage for morale in a 4-3-1. With maxes up to 160, 210, and then 336. Except for the last one, that one actually not morale and overall any unit. And this is where I was surprised with her. She is actually, honestly, I think from a cow standpoint, she is okay. But this one skill right here is where she shines. So she has 10, 10, and then up to 336 even outside of Dark Visions. Yes, it does take 25 times to do this. Quad cast or quintuple casting means 5 turns, but still being able to do 336 at the end and being able to quintuple cast it is huge. She does have very strong burst potential in the end here. So it is 5 of the 8 elements overall, and with the ability to decrease the lightning resistance as well. The only big issue right now is that you need to mess around, or might even need to focus on a unit that can actually absorb that, where she then pounds it out. Otherwise, obviously, if you're using this to a very specific, like say Dark Vision's boss with this 130% there, that would absolutely wreck it overall. Once again, too, this is only one enemy, so all 5 will hit. And if you have a quintuple cast, another unit that has that as well, that is a very large amount for chaining as well. So this is where I kind of see her uses overall, is these skills right here. And she has fire, lightning, wind, water, and earth. She also has trouble brewing, which is the same overall, which gives her quintuple brewing. Absorb, and she can also have 2 True Dispels, where she remove all buffs from enemies and remove all debuffs from all allies. Having 2 uses per battle is absolutely huge. This has not changed at all, except for Salve Toss. So what is Salve Toss? She will do physical damage, but increase break damage for a throwing weapon to one enemy for 500%. And on top of this, too, her Limit Burst gives magic damage only to aquatic and plant for 150% for 5 turns to all allies. Decreases fire, lightning, wind, water, and earth resistance 130% for 5 turns. And then does a very large, up to 730x max cow damage, 1 hit. So this is going to be kind of her really big finishing damage overall. This is where her cow is for damage, but from a support stand, I'm a little bit disappointed. For morale, she can do a lot of damage, but she just doesn't have the morale ability like a lot of other units does. Yes, you can always do some of the other stuff. So from a unit, what do I think of her? She's very limited use, but she does have a lot of power. For Cow, this is what you're going to be using her for is her limit burst in her brave shift form. And for Dark Visions, you'll be using one of these 5 if she fits at a team like this. Because 336 as a chainer is absolutely huge. And if you're throwing 4 chainers in a party, you can use her with a bolting strike, or even if need be, what you can be doing is using her for a triple cast along with a Laura and a Carton. But like Yigni, you can also use, I believe she has bolting strike, which you can quintuple cast, and you can, and that is kind of going to be something that will be very, very useful for Dark Visions. So I do see her being able to be used for both. She is not going to be the best unit on there, but I think she will be a unit that can overall be very helpful. I'm not going to say she is a must pull. I'm not even so sure she is really going to be the unit that is going to be absolutely busted in Dark Visions, but really what I'm seeing, so 5 turns, so it will be at least a turn 6 kill for max damage on her side. But that 336 is very, very big, especially with her being able to chain it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking overall. The only thing that I am disappointed with her on is for her normal shift is that this use here, that is dispellable. So any enemy that has dispel, I think it's going to be a pretty negative effect there, and you won't be able to use this as much as you would like. These all have 5 turns, so you would be pretty doing okay for that. But for like Dark Visions, they usually have a dispel or need a dispel trick depending on it. But she can be like these can't be dispelled, but the big one here can be. So I think she's okay. I know a lot of people are really negative about her. I do see her being able to be used as a very powerful Dark Visions unit, as a huge chainer helper that can do damage. basically a Laura and a Carton, but it requires 4 to 5 turns for her to really get that damage moving. And that is her big weakness. She's not going to be a turn 2 or turn 1 high damage dealer. She's a turn. So first turn. Basically, turn 7 is her high max and beyond. Turn 6 is nearly her max. So there's going to be a lot of turn 8 kills for Dark Vision bosses using her. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to do my pull sets now. But if there are any questions, I will post those on later as well. So thank you, everybody on YouTube. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of slower and more impromptu vision here. So good luck and enjoy.